ladies and gentlemen, this is Watson Michael from Ceylon Institute of English and Leadership. So this time, we have a very interesting guest with us. His name is Mr. Mark Greene, all the way from the US. He's a former Navy SEAL, served 19 years, and at the moment, he's an amazing best-selling author, and he has authored the book Unsealed. Also, he's a proud dad of 4 kids. Mark, welcome, and how are you doing today?
Hey, thank you for having me on the show. I'm doing great. Right now it's 9:30 at night in the US, so my day is winding down, but I'm so happy to be on your show.
Right, great. So Mark is ending his day and I'm starting his day, but during his SEAL days at 9:30 only he starts his day. All right.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So what was the reason for you to name this book Unsealed, Navy SEAL's Guide to Mastering Life's Transitions?
So when you do anything for a career, when you leave that career, you have a transition from, you were a SEAL at the highest level or one of the highest levels for 20 years. And then all of a sudden you retire, and instead of being a Navy SEAL, I'm just Mark, My support system was completely gone. I didn't have a tribe anymore. And in order to start the healing process, I had to unravel everything that I had learned. It was just, I was a SEAL and then I became unsealed, so I could expose everything that I'd been through and really start the healing process and understand that it's okay to not be a SEAL anymore, and to lose that. It was a very prestigious job. It was lots of throughout the military. You fought in wars for 14, 15 years straight, and then after that I was just Mark, and I didn't have a tribe. I didn't have a SEAL team anymore. And I was, for lack of a better term, I think I was lost for a little while, just trying to find my next journey or my next mission, so I had to go through a transformation, and I had to undo everything that made me a SEAL and reinvent myself.
Yeah, so when you talk of transition, it reminds me also, right? So including my dad. Okay, so we went through some transformation as well in the past, right? Due to certain things, and it is pretty hard when you go through transformation. Certain things like at one time you're at the top, and then sometimes you come to the bottom. Then it's like a chart going up and down. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Okay, so let's talk about this book a bit. What is so special? Because I like this name. I like the name Unsealed. So can you tell me what's special about this book?
So it's, there are lots of Navy SEAL books or books on special operations, and it either talks about leadership or how to be a high performer. Although that was part of my journey, it was really, what's unique about this is it is no heroics, no cool war stories. It's just really documenting life and all the transition points that I've gone through, starting as a child. When you transition from primary school to university, if you lose a parent, you get married, children, all those are transition points. So it's really trying to highlight what transitions I went through. And sadly, a lot of service members, once they transition out of the military, a lot of them take their own lives. So I really wanted to tell my story as a SEAL, but use it as a mechanism or a vehicle to speak about how transitions are the real life transitions and how challenging they can be. but also there's a lot of help to make sure that you don't take a permanent solution to what is usually a temporary problem.
Yeah, yeah, very true. So, like now so I need to thank actually Richard, right, former shipmate Richard Burns for introducing me to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know Richard, you'll be watching this show, right? So I mentioned your name, right? Okay, right. So now you're selling this book, okay, the Kindle version for 99 cents, right? US dollar cents. I mean, that's a pretty decent price right now. That's half of the price of my one of my favorite chicken fried rice. Okay, it's a delicious meal. It's half of the price. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's affordable, right? And Kindle means you have it for a lifetime as long as you have the Amazon Kindle account, right? So I would say anybody can afford this, right? So anybody can afford this for this price. Okay, so you're doing a good service when you're selling it for that price. Okay, so can we discuss about a special chapter in this book, a preferred chapter of yours?
I think my favorite chapter was it was sadly about losing my father. My father.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now at the age where my father passed away. My father was 52 when he passed away.
Okay.
And when
Okay.
fathers and sons sometimes have very contentious relationships, and my father and I were the same
Mm.
way. And when he found out he had cancer, I had to
Mm.
make a decision because they were going to do a hip replacement. And then
Okay.
30 minutes into the surgery, that all the doctors came out, which is very bad. So they said, "Hey, we discovered that there's so much cancer in your father, not just his hip. So we need
Mm.
to amputate his leg." And I said, I thought about it because we didn't have a lot of time. And I just asked one question.
Mm.
I was like, "Will it save my father's life?" And they said yes. So I said,
Mm.
"Okay, so please do what you need to do to save my father's life, and then we'll
Yeah.
figure it out afterwards." But unfortunately, the cancer came back 6 months later. But what I got to do was I got to reconnect with my dad as
Mm.
as he was succumbing to cancer. Normally, I'd live 12 hours drive from my father, but I was teaching
Wow.
the SEAL sniper course, which was only 2 hours away.
Mm.
So on the weekends, I would leave work and I would go drive to see my dad, and I would spend the weekend with my dad. And we had a great time. We told a lot of stories and we reconnected. And it was,
Mm.
even though it was, the conditions were quite terrible, it was, I would have never made that effort to reconnect with him had that not happened.
Mm. Yeah, it's very emotional, right? So I so last week me and my dad were going on a trip. Okay, so a short trip. I went to visit him, and we were going on a trip, and we were buying some meals out, right? And we went to a restaurant, and I still remember that guy. Okay, he's a very cunning person, that restaurant owner, right? So he was telling, okay, you won't just come here now. You came for something, right? Now I couldn't. Now I'm a guy. When I laugh, I can't control laughing. Okay, right? So I was like thinking that this. He's a very cunning guy, that restaurant owner. Okay, sometimes I don't want to name him, but like he reduces the ingredients and he hikes up the price. Okay, because there's no standard price there, right? So he said, okay, you didn't come here. You would have come here for some reason. Right? I was like, I couldn't help laughing, right? then this is buy and we're going to have to pay the bill, okay? So, I mean, some good memories, right? And I'm sure this your chapter will help a lot of people like who are having problems with their parents or attitude issues and all. It could help them to reconnect, okay? So, from the way you're saying, it's a very emotional chapter. I feel it, okay? I really feel it, okay? So, I'm sure it'll help a lot of people, right? Now, another thing I wanted to ask you was right? We all face rejection, okay?
Hmm.
We have faced multiple rejections, right? Sometimes it's very hard, okay? Sometimes it's very hard. The people who you know, you think are your friends,
Hmm.
later they turn out to be they are not your friends, except for the very few.
Right.
What is your advice? How to face rejection or like,
So I take rejection as a point to learn something, right? So
Mm,
if in my context, if I get rejected, then I did something wrong, possibly
mm,
in some context. So if I get rejected by a girl, or if I don't get a job that I was looking for, or I don't get a promotion, or whatever the case, I take that rejection as a teaching moment. And
mm,
what could I have done better in this situation to not get rejected the next time? So then that
mm,
makes me say, okay, I have to improve in some way. I have to
mm,
either communicate better to talk to a girl, or I have to work
mm,
a little bit harder, or I have to focus my efforts more on what my goal is. And then,
mm,
so the next time I face a similar situation, I've thought through the problem, and then it's like, okay, I don't want to face that rejection again. So
mm,
what do I need to do to do I need to study more? Do I need to
mm,
learn from somebody who's gone through this situation before? And I really just take all those points and say, okay, I got rejected. I understand that. There's a reason for that rejection. Figure out what that reason is, and then improve upon that so that rejection doesn't happen again.
wow. Yeah, that's true, right? So when you say about rejection, like, yeah, I would say more or less like, yeah, it's painful, right? At times it is painful.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
you know,
so
sometimes it's brutally honest in the business world. You know, if you don't get promoted, or you don't get the job you want, or you don't get a date with the girl or whoever, it's, hey, I did something wrong.
yeah. Yeah, thank you for telling us. So this guy, right? His name is Philip Bob. Okay, he was on my podcast a couple of times. Two times Emmy-nominated TV producer. He never got a promotion which he expected. Okay, and he wrote a book. All the reasons I hate my 28-year-old boss. All right. Okay. So it reminds me of that. Okay. Right. So if couples get rejected, I mean, that's a very girl rejecting the boy, boy rejecting the girl. Okay, that's a long story. Okay, so let's leave that at where it is. Okay, right. So on Amazon it mentions, okay, on Amazon it say everything about your book. It says everything you want: life-giving relationships, genuine happiness, successful business, peace of mind awaits on the other side of struggle.
Hmm.
Can you elaborate on that?
So it's, as you're going through the struggle, I think you lose sight of the good things that are in your life, right? So
Mm,
so I lost focus for the time that I was looking for a new way to fit in, or looking for a new job,
mm,
and
yeah.
I ignored the things that were right in front of me that were very fulfilling parts of my life. Um,
Mm,
I was successful in multiple other ways that
mm,
I was so focused on this one singular point of my life that
yeah.
the 99 other points of my life that were great completely lost focus. So
Mm,
yeah, so it really made me, as I figured out life again and rediscovered what I already had right in front of me. I was healthy. I had four amazing children. At
mm,
the time, I had been married for 20 years. I had a great career.
mm,
And when I transitioned, I didn't lose any of that really. I
mm,
just focused on the negative side of it, which is very counter to how I am
mm,
in everyday life. So once I discovered that I found my purpose again and reevaluated my life and said, okay, well, what I perceive is not being having a fulfilling life is not correct, because I have all these things that I can look at and touch every day that
Mm,
is fulfilling. So once I made that transition and refocused and rediscovered all the good things in my life, then
mm.
really just reintegrating myself back into everything that was positive. And I think life is more interesting with struggle and overcoming that struggle and then being successful on the other side.
I agree, because you need some sort of bit of a stress, right? I mean, to keep going forward. Okay, everything doesn't fall on your lap, right? So we have to go through struggles. Like when you say a transition, how long were you? Like, was it in years or was it in months? What is the duration for your transition and struggle?
So I think for the complete transformation transition, I think it took about 4 years.
Wow.
Now that's not typical because I lived in Virginia. I was unemployed for the first time in 20 years. Moved to
Wow.
Los Angeles, learned a new city, learned a new career. I was commuting back and forth. It's 3,000 miles coming back and forth. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was just so many different transition points. And it took about 4 years because for the first year, I was resisting. I was, no, everything's fine. Hey, Mark, are you okay? Yes, when I wasn't. So if I would have taken the time and used some wisdom and said, all these people are asking you for if you need help because they see something you don't see.
Mm,
So once I realized that they're asking this for a reason, and it's because they can see that I need help in some way, either hey, here's how to do this new job, or hey, I've gone through a divorce before, and this is what you can kind of help get that, or you have invisible injuries from your service that
mm.
you don't actually realize. So um, once I figured that out and came to a realization that I needed help, then I was like, how do I get the help that I need? So what I want to do with this book is shorten that transition period down. And if the service member needs help, they may not realize it, but their spouse realizes it or their kids see it. So,
Mm.
so everybody, a lot of other people see how the service member's struggling, but me as the person going through the transition, I didn't see 90% of it.
Mm.
So what I'm hoping to do is if a service member's wife or husband says, hey, I see what you're going through, or a
Yeah.
child says, hey, dad, mom, I see that you're struggling with this transition. There's this book out and there's this story that really touches on what you're going through right now.
Mm.
Why don't you read a chapter, which turns into 2 chapters, which turns into the entire book, and then it could turn
Mm.
into getting the help they need. Because
Wow.
everybody goes through the transition, not just the service member.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Correct.
everybody's leaving service. Everybody's leaving what they're
Yeah.
comfortable with and familiar with. So transition is it's a family transition. Everybody in your life
Mm.
experiences it.
Absolutely. So I was in a career, right? I was in a corporate travel for almost 12 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think almost. So so almost 12 years, right? And I was like, okay, right. But I changed my career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Post pandemic. It was completely just like a bit of upside down thing. But yeah, I took a challenge and yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Great, great, great. So can you summarize this book in one sentence?
It is. Wow, that's a great question.
Mm,
This book is a testament to perseverance and um, Rediscovery.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Okay, rediscovery, right? Because the way you speak, Mark, we can feel it. Okay, the way you're saying. Right. Great. And yeah, that's pretty good. So what is the message you will give? Okay, as a final message, what is the final message you will give for all the people who seek motivation?
It's easy to find motivation, and once you find out what you're passionate about, you go through SEAL training, right? It is a miserable experience. It's completely awful, but I was so motivated to do it that I was passionate about it, and I wanted to be there, and I could see the benefit of it once I graduated and went on to become a SEAL. So yeah, I always remained focused, and it was just, I'm here. I'm happy to be here. It's some of the toughest training in the world, but at the end of the day, I'm in San Diego, and it's nice and warm, and I'm in the Pacific Ocean, and I'm working out with some of my best friends. Okay, well now this is easy. So now I just have to figure out how to make sure that I survive it, and become the best, get a little bit better every day. And I learned how to manage life in pieces I could manage. So I got a master's of business, got an MBA from the Naval Postgraduate School, right? After flunking out of college. And then when I went to the University of Southern California, I loved it so much that I went to graduate school again and got a second master's in public policy. And even though it was incredibly challenging, I just loved it. It was hard. USC is a very difficult university, but I wanted it so badly. I was so passionate about it that I was gonna succeed no matter what. So yeah, it was great, but it was not fun at all.
Wow. Amazing, amazing. So, Mark, thank you very much for taking time and doing this podcast with us. And for all those watching or listening, you can find the link below where you can get Mark's book. So the Kindle version is also there, the hard copy is also there. But the Kindle version, you can keep it for a lifetime. It won't get lost, and it's only 99 cents, right? So it's cheaper than a cup of coffee as well, right? In the US and even in Sri Lanka or India or most parts of the world. All right. So, Mark, thank you very much.
Of course, and thank you so much for having me on the show. And I look forward to coming back for show number 2.
Absolutely. We look forward to that too.